Assisted sprinting and overspeed, by far one of the most simple but also powerful stimuli and training exercises that you can do on your 1080 sprint. So let's get into the how-to and best practices to set up, plan, perform, and execute these exercises with your athletes to be as safe, efficient, and effective as possible. So first, let's take a step back and let's understand really what we mean when we talk about assistance, overspeed, and kind of things like that. So really the core of it is having the motor or the machine pull the athlete towards it or assist them. And really we're talking about the eccentric load, so coming towards the machine, and the eccentric velocity. So how do we combine those two variables that we program on the machine with the distance of the rep itself to create the exercise we want? And in general, although these are sometimes used interchangeably, they do mean different things. So we have assisted sprinting, that's going to be anything sub-max, and we have overspeed sprinting, anything supermax or above what they could do on their own. So I'll be using these words kind of interchangeably, but we're talking about running towards the machine, and then we have two kind of different intensities. So here are just two examples. In this first video, we have an assisted dribble run out, where the athlete starts small dribbles, getting into big dribbles, and then running it out for 10 or 15 yards after that. That would be submaximal. So this would be an assisted drill. And next we have what would be considered an overspeed sprint, way more distance. The effort is way higher all out. They're holding this max speed for a longer time. Just some visuals for assisted sprinting versus overspeed sprinting. And not to start quoting research and go study after study after study, but just to understand that there is more to this than simply just having the athlete clip into the belt, run towards the machine, and go fast. So for example, the study by Ken Clark looked into, well, what actually changed besides just running faster? How did the assistance or overspeed change the actual sprint itself? And from the kinematics, we saw an increased flight time, an increased stride length, and a decreased contact time that contributed to the faster speeds. And this kind of summary bullet point here, by understanding what overspeed does or assistance does to the sprint itself, this can help coaches kind of program and plan and progress more than just for the absolute speed, but also be intentional with the acute and chronic intervention. So now this can be a targeted tool to get specific adaptations both in the moment and also kind of over time than simply just, hey, let's run fast. Let's work on your stride length, your stride frequency, your flight time, ground time, depending on how much you pull, how long you pull, how you coach and cue it. So there is another layer to it besides just running fast. So the point of hooking an athlete up and running fast is to first challenge them to hit higher speeds, right? If the athlete can move their arms and legs and coordinate a run that fast, they just need a little bit of assistance, a little bit of kind of help to hit those speeds. Next, to self-organize into better mechanics, because if it can do it, it just needs a little bit of help to do it. Well, why don't we put the athlete in a position to hit those kind of more optimal, efficient, and effective mechanics? And then last is to help the athlete or challenge the athlete to maintain those mechanics for longer, right? To run with assistance, to run at a little bit higher speeds for 20, 30, maybe even 40 yards, something where they might get a little bit tired and not be able to hold those mechanics that long. The assistance is going to challenge them to do that. And this last point here is to really be running with the machine. So we can obviously crank up the load. We can put the distances super, super far, but we want the athlete actually running with the machine, not just being pulled by it, right? If we're going to do an overspeed sprint for 60 meters, we don't want the athlete decelerating or braking or having poor mechanics for 40 of those 60 yards if the load is just way, way too high. So it's important to understand that sometimes less is more. And we want the athlete to feel like they're doing almost all of the work. We can call it 80, 90% of the work. And the assistance is just that last little bit to help them hit that little bit higher of a speed and pull them into a little bit more optimal mechanics or challenge them to hold it a little bit longer, something that is definitely within their control and they are doing all of the work. None of this should ever feel excessive or out of control or something that they could not do on their own. The best practices in just setting up your assistance and your overspeed is being very clear both with your understanding, your communication with the athlete and just the athlete understanding what to do, what not to do, what the objective of the drill or exercise is, where the assistance is going to start, where it's going to stop, what all the different cones and the markings mean, when to do what when. So there should be no confusion about how to execute your overspeed, both from a coach perspective and also an athlete perspective. And one more best practice is to have the athlete slightly offset from the machine. So if you're on the track, you have the machine in lane 1 and the athlete is in lane 2, both for the line of pull and also for the deceleration after. And then we'll get into some visuals of this right now. So there are 2 main ways to kind of set up your assistance in overspeed in regards to finishing the rep, because doing the actual rep, the athlete is obviously attached. So the end of it and decelerating, how do you want to execute this? So first, you can do this with the rip away Velcro, which I'll show next, or you can stay attached to the line. So first, here's an example of a Paralympic athlete doing an overspeed rep with the Velcro release. So you'll see at the end, those yellow cones, they rip it, and then they can decelerate off to the side. They are no longer attached to the line. So you want the Velcro to only overlap halfway, which I'll show next. You want to make sure that the yellow loop that they'll be grabbing is very open and facing upright. And then again, the athlete is slightly offset from the machine. So this is the release strap, Velcro strap, rip away belt, whatever you want to call it. Normally, there's maximum overlap of the Velcro when you're doing resisted running because you want maximum kind of tension. But it's different when we're doing resisted sprints with 30 plus kilos versus assisted sprints, kind of 2 to 6 kilos. So you don't need as much overlap, as much tension versus when you're doing overspeed. So rip it apart and then only overlap about half of it. Make sure it's pressed in tight, but that way there's less Velcro or less force that they need to kind of open it at the end of the sprint versus if it was maximally kind of overlapped. And then the big yellow strap, make sure that that is facing upright. So depending on how the athlete puts on the belt, it could accidentally be facing downwards, but we want it to be facing upwards. And then over time, that yellow circle could get kind of folded or kind of compressed. So we just want to make sure that that is open and upright with the Velcro only overlapped about halfway. And then also, if you're doing this multiple reps, well, when the athlete releases it, you're going to have to re-Velcro it anyways. So just remember to only Velcro it about halfway. And next we have a demo of a super high level elite athlete. You might have to watch this part multiple times because they might be going past the screen a little bit too fast. So don't feel bad if you have to re-watch it. So at this cone, the athlete is instructed to rip the belt away, grab the yellow strap, rip it, throw it, and then decelerate on their own. And you can see the athlete is slightly offset from the machine. So when the belt is released, it pulls out of the way and then they can decelerate on their own. So here's a super high level schematic that I drew up. You have the sprint, the rip away zone, and then the deceleration zone. And 2 things I want to point out here. First is the calibration point, or that is where the machine is set to pull the string back to. You do not want the calibration point and the rip away point to be the same, because if the athlete rips the belt off and the machine is calibrated there, then it's just going to drop. You want the athlete to rip the belt away and the machine to keep pulling the string back so it's out of the way. And then last, you see these triple cones on the far left, is you want to prepare or be as safe as possible just in case the athlete misses the yellow strap or they just happen to stay attached. So you can do the math, how far away the calibration point is, minus that same distance, and set up a big barrier, more cones, and communicate to the athlete, hey, if you stay attached, which could happen, that this is where you have to stop decelerating kind of no matter what. So as long as they know where they're going to rip it away, as long as the calibration point is set to keep pulling the string out of the way, and the athlete knows where the absolute max stop line is, you should be good to go. And then next, you could just stay attached to the belt like normal. Same thing, the athlete is a little bit offset from the machine, and then the calibration point, or where the machine is set to stop pulling, right before that, they can move the string out of the way. I just move my hand to the side, or this athlete, I think they pull it up. And here's an example, an athlete in Chile doing an overspeed sprint, and you'll see at the very end, they just take their hand and they just move it off to the side just like that, and then they're set to decelerate. So again, very high level athlete. If you have to pause and rewatch it, feel free. So at this last cone is where the machine is set to stop pulling. The string goes slack or just drops, and then the athlete can just decelerate like normal because the string is off to the side, not dropping in between their legs where they could get kind of tangled up. So this is set up a little bit differently because the calibration point is set to where the athlete is supposed to be done sprinting. So as long as it's very obvious where that cone is, the athlete knows 1 or 2 steps before, move the string out of the way. Then when the string drops, gravity will take care of the rest, and then they can just decelerate. And same idea, in this visual, the string was calibrated out 15 yards, so they will stay attached. So then they have 15 yards on the back end to decelerate. Not that you have to take up that whole distance. You actually probably shouldn't, but just so the athlete knows if they're cooking or if they get a little bit lackadaisical, whatever it is, that they have to stop by that point basically no matter what, or else they're gonna kind of pull the machine kind of with them. Probably won't feel very good. So now the actual kind of software, what to put on the machine. If you're running this on the control app, the tablet, all we're concerned about is the eccentric load, so how heavy the machine is pulling them forwards, and then the eccentric velocity. And you want the eccentric velocity maxed out to 14 meters a second or 31 miles an hour because that is what the machine is trying to do. The machine is trying to pull back in at 14 meters a second so the athlete feels the load. So for example, if you set this to 10 meters a second, as soon as the athlete runs faster than that, they are running faster than the machine is pulling in, and then the string will go slack. And also why we want this maxed out, if you're going to rip the belt away, well then when they rip it away and release it, the machine is going to pull it back in at 14 meters a second faster than they can run, which makes it way, way safer. So the load and velocity, you max out the velocity, and then the load, 2, 3, 4, 5 kilos, whatever you feel comfortable with. And if you're running this on the Sprint 2 itself, this is going to be the quick start, or just that little tile that says assisted sprint. We only give you the option of assisted load because the assisted velocity, again, the machine knows that it's maxed out. So you just get to control how many kilos of pull you want. And actually turn this into real life. You feel comfortable how to set it up. You feel comfortable how to communicate this with your athletes. You don't have to sprint all out right away. You don't have to go right from not doing this to true overspeed. You can start with drills, dribbles, straight leg bounds, just building up, submaximal running. And that's a great place to start just to get familiarity, to get comfortable with how to set it up, how to communicate it to the athlete. The athlete knows what to do with the rip away belt, or they know how to move it out of the way at the very, very end. So don't feel obligated that you just have to start ripping 100% effort, 105% overspeed, 110% overspeed right away. It is okay, and you probably should start with a submaximal phase just for everyone involved to become more comfortable with the process. And here are just some examples. We had Les Spellman when he presented at the 1080 Summit in Los Angeles, just walking an athlete here through assisted dribbles, how to coach and cue it. And he does assisted drills so he can get to overspeed sprinting a little bit quicker. He uses assisted drills in the first 3 weeks to set the athlete up to start overspeed sprinting in week 4, because with his NFL combine athletes, he only has kind of 12 weeks total. So he uses the drills not only as a good workout, but also as an on-ramping to true kind of overspeed later. And then we have Chris Corfist doing some assisted drills, kind of messing with the arms up, arms crossed, again, to challenge the athlete to self-organize to run a little bit faster than normal than they could with their arms up, right? Because they're being pulled, to see if their legs can run a little bit more efficiently and effectively to run with the machine and not just be pulled by it, trying to hit a decent amount of speed. So drills are a great place to start. When we're actually programming and thinking about this kind of over time, you don't set the actual velocity that the athlete is running at. You don't just set it at 10.3 meters a second, and then that's what the machine is pulling them at. That's what the machine is trying to do, but the athlete will still get to run kind of however fast they can. So basically we combine both how heavy or the load the machine is pulling them at and how far the athlete is running to hopefully get them up to the speed that you want. So to start out, 2 to 3 kilos is a great place to start. 20 meters just to feel it out, practice however you want to finish the rep, whether it's the Velcro or whether you just move it out of the way, and then add a 80% effort, 90% effort, something just smooth and bouncy, and feel what it's like running with assistance or running with the machine. And progressing this over time, similar to our COD kind of webinar series, is first just start by coaching and cueing. If you can get more speed simply by saying, hey, let's go from 90% to 95%, right? Or if you can say, hey, hit it faster, run faster, again, something just verbal, well, then why don't we get more speed and intensity just by doing that? Next, you would increase the distance. And this is an important second variable to mess with because you're giving the athlete the opportunity to go faster. So let's say you're coaching at 100% effort, you're going for 30 yards. Well, instead of staying at 30 yards and just, cranking up the load, you could potentially be pulling them with way more load into speeds that they're not comfortable handling. But if we go from 30 meters to 40 meters at the same load, let's say 3 kilos, well, the athlete can self-regulate what they feel comfortable doing. With the same load, if they don't feel comfortable or they can't hit a higher speed, well, they're not going to go any kind of faster. So start by increasing the distance, see what the athlete can do and what they're comfortable with. And then over time, then you can add another kilo, another half kilo, whatever it is. And with all this, just keep in mind that we want the athlete doing basically all of the work. We want them to feel a little bit of assistance, like they are in control the whole time, not that they're being pulled to excessive speeds or excessive mechanics or something beyond what they're comfortable or what they could do on their own. In general, some kind of closing best practices. A regular belt closed as tight as possible, so you want the pull to be as tight to their hips as possible. You want familiarization sessions or even an entire phase, kind of like Les Spellman did his assisted drills for kind of 3 weeks. You don't have to rush into assisted sprinting overspeed too soon. You want to keep mechanics the priority. Again, we want this to transfer. We don't want to be pulling them at crazy high speeds, but with poor mechanics. So then when they're running on their own, we're making their mechanics kind of worse. So we want to self-organize. We want to challenge the athlete, but as close to their regular sprinting as possible. So when they go to regular sprinting, it does transfer. We want to coach and cue the athlete to run with the machine. Again, they're doing almost all of the work. And you want to get athlete feedback, how they're feeling. If you increase the distance, say, hey, do you think you were able to run faster, or was that too far? Were you getting tired at the end? Or if you go from 3 kilos to 3.5 or 3 kilos to 4, hey, how did that feel? Did you feel under the same amount of control, or was that too much? You want this to be a very open and constant dialogue with the coach and the athlete to make sure that you're setting the athlete up in the safest, most efficient, effective, and repeatable way to run fast and kind of do that again and again and again over time. So next, you just got to go do it. There is no other way to feel what 3 kilos feels like, what 20 yards versus 30 yards feels like, what 3 kilos versus 4 kilos feels like, and things like that besides just doing it yourself. So do it, learn more on our website, and show us on social media how it's going at 1080 Motion on all of your favorite platforms. So happy assisted sprinting and overspeed, and go make speed happen.